What is up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Fantasy Fellow Show. My name's Kyle. We're coming at you with a quick video today, going over the rookie QB class, the 2024 rookie QBs. We're going to be looking at advanced data. Most of it is grades from PFF and a bunch of other metrics here that we're going to be looking at. And I'll hop right into a screen share. We're going to, everything's available on thefantasyfellowship.com. There's going to be a link in the description and probably in the comments. And I've already covered running backs and wide receivers. So I'll probably link those videos and whatnot too. So check those out if you haven't on thefantasyfellowship.com. You know, there's kind of the most viewed tabs over here. You can click on advanced data for the QBs. And what we're going to be doing here is I have essentially I've taken about 8 metrics: quarterback rating, offensive grade, passing grade, running grade, accuracy, big time throw percentage, turnover worthy play percentage, and pressures turned into sack percentage. We're going to look at all 8 of these metrics. I'll show you guys the top 5 or 6 quarterbacks in those stats and the bottom 5 or 6 QBs in those stats. And then at the end, we'll look at all of it together and kind of just get a good picture of this entire rookie QB class. If you guys want access to the entire data set, you guys can join my Patreon. And just because I like it, we'll probably open that up and I'll show you guys a sneak peek behind the curtain. But the Patreon is going to be in the description as well. I've got all the running back, wide receiver, QB data, and I will be doing some dynasty updates here. I'm trying to get an update out for March 1st. So that's coming later this week. Otherwise, sit back. Let's get right into the video here, looking at the advanced QB data. Now, at the top of the charts here, you're going to see just the 2023 stats from last season. You guys can go through. You got height, weight, you got completions, attempts, completion percentage, passing yards, touchdowns, interceptions, wide PA. You guys can find all that right at the top of the screen. I'm not going to go over it too much, but let's get right into the QBR rating. And last year, number 1 player, Jayden Daniels at 143.7. And like I said, I'm going to show you the top 5 players and the bottom 5 players. Now, I have a data set of 20 QBs. And you see the ranking here on the far left, and then MDD. That stands for Mock Draft Database. That's my consensus ranking right now that I'm using. So Jayden Daniels, he's the consensus QB3 on the board. Bo Nix, QB5. He comes in at number 2 with the passer rating of 135.8. And those guys were a good tier above the next group of guys. Caleb Williams coming in at number 3 with 117.4. JJ McCarthy, 116.6. And then you have Jason Bean out of Kansas with 114.1. Bottom 5 players in this QBR rating category: Austin Reed, Jack Plummer, Devin Leary, Ben Bryant, Kedon Slovis. Probably don't need to know those guys for fantasy and for dynasty leagues here. Those guys might not even get drafted. We'll see if they do. But your top 5 QBs: Daniels, Bo Nix, Caleb Williams, JJ McCarthy, Jason Bean. That's kind of the consensus top 4 as far as the true quarterbacks. So that makes sense that they all had great seasons last year. But there's your QBR, and I'm going to save it. We're gonna look at that next year. But offensive grade. Let's move on to this one. So offensive grade, I have the top 5 guys here and the bottom 5 guys here. And you can see Jayden Daniels led the way at 94.7 offensive grade. And this just kind of takes into account passing, running, and just overall grade of the offense here. We'll look at passing grade and running grade next. But Bo Nix, number 2, 93 rating. Michael Penix Jr., 91.1. JJ McCarthy. And then there's Drake May. So the top 5 QBs here are all top 6-ish QBs in the actual NFL class right now. But like I said, I'm going to show you guys a little sneak peek of what you can get if you join the Patreon. And this is just the PDF that you can download here. It's just attached here to each post. This is the stats tab that we looked at earlier. This kind of shows the scoring system, which we'll look at later. And we already kind of talked about QBR, but let's look specifically at the offensive grades here. And I'll show you guys. We said Drake May coming in at number 5. Caleb Williams was number 6, 90.3, not too far off of those guys. John Reese Plumlee out of UCF at 89.9. Jordan Travis, FSU, 87.8. And then there was a drop off of almost 10 points to the next best QB. So all these QBs were below 80 points. Spencer Rattler, to name another guy. Talia Tagovailoa, another name here. Joe Milton. But the top guys are traditionally the guys that you're looking for. Again, Jayden Daniels ranked number 3. Bo Nix, the 5th best QB. Michael Penix, the 6th best QB. McCarthy, a top 4 QB. Drake May, 2. Caleb Williams, 1. The outlier here is John Reese Plumlee out of UCF. Jordan Travis, a top 10 QB. So offensive grade and QBR rating, those are pretty sticky stats to show how good a QB was and how good of the season that they did have. And like I mentioned, some of the guys down here, we're not too concerned about these guys. Below 70 is a really bad grade. Spencer Rattler didn't play, but he's actually getting some buzz after the Senior Bowl and whatnot. But that is, and again, you guys can go to the Patreon. You guys can get access to these. I have that for all the positions. I will be uploading tight end later this week. But there's your offensive grades. Let's move on to the passing grades. And Bo Nix coming in at number 1 with a 92.7, Jayden Daniels a 92 score, Michael Penix a 90.5, Drake May 89.1, and JJ McCarthy 87.9. You'll notice no Caleb Williams in the top 5 for passing grade, even though he's going to probably have he's going to have 2 receivers get drafted and a running back get drafted off that grade. So not a top 5 score for Caleb Williams, but everybody else, this is your consensus top 6. Nix, Daniels, Penix, May, McCarthy with Caleb Williams in there. Now, guys at the bottom, again, we don't really care too much about the guys at the bottom, but Devin Leary, Ben Bryant, Kenan Slovis, Austin Reed, and Carter Bradley. Don't know if they'll get drafted. Probably not. But either way, passing grade, JJ McCarthy, the fact that he was in an offense that they just didn't need to throw very much. It was, they were up big most games here, double-digit leads, leaned on the run game, leaned on an elite defense here. McCarthy is a good player, good passing grade, good QBR, good offensive grade. He's a guy that's the more I look into, the more I like. But there's your passing grade numbers. Now let's look at the running grade numbers. Obviously, Jayden Daniels is going to be the guy here, 92.4 at the top of the list, and then a nice 10-point difference down to Caleb Williams. And that's kind of the difference, I think, between Caleb Williams and I don't like people comparing Caleb Williams to Patrick Mahomes. Caleb Williams is technically a better athlete, I think, than Patrick Mahomes. And the 82.6 run grade here shows that he's got the ability with the ball in his hand to make things happen. Coming in at number 2, John Reese Plumlee. We mentioned him on a list earlier, 78.1 run grade. JJ McCarthy, another sneaky stat here is he's a pretty productive runner, a 78 score here. Joe Milton, the big quarterback out of Tennessee, with a 78. And then bottom 5 guys, Kenan Slovis, Jason Bean, Jack Plummer, Ben Bryant, and Sam Hartman down there with the run grade. But for these grades, obviously Jayden Daniels is going to be the guy. Caleb Williams, I like to see his score nice and high. Don't know if Plumlee's going to be a guy that's, undrafted somewhere, but McCarthy sticks out here because you don't really think about him being ultra athletic, but he does prove that he can do it. So I like that. There's your running grade scores. Let's move on to accuracy scores. Now, accuracy, it's not the completion percentage. It's the amount of throws that were accurate and potentially catchable for that matter. So Bo Nix coming in at number 1 with 85.4% accuracy. The one issue with this stat is he had one of the lowest ADOTs. I think it was the lowest ADOT in this 20 sample QB. So 6.8 ADOTs. He's got some guys that are going to be drafted, a running back that's going to get drafted. He got the ball out of his hand quick. So he can play, kind of small ball and do a lot of dink and dunk things. He's just going to have to prove that he can, one, play from under center and hit the deep ball consistently. But we know he's very accurate and he can move the ball and play this nice, slow style offense where they just kind of move up the field in chunks. JJ McCarthy at number 2 with the 80% grade. Jayden Daniels, number 3, 79.6 accuracy grade. Spencer Rattler, 79.4. And then the 5th place guy, Caleb Williams, at 77.5. Notice we're not really seeing Drake May's name on a lot of these lists, but his 2022 numbers, kind of like Caleb Williams, both those guys, their 2022 numbers were a little bit better than 2023. But that's your top 5 accuracy players. Bottom 5 accuracy guys, kind of the same guys we've been dragging through the mud here. Ben Bryant, Austin Reed, Jason Bean, Devin Leary, Kenan Slovis. But the one that sticks out, is, to me, I like putting in ADOT here because, the farther downfield the ball goes, the less likely that pass is to be completed. And Jayden Daniels with a 10.5 ADOT had almost an 80% accuracy here, which is pretty nice. So I don't know if I can take too much out of Bo Nix from this one with the 7-yard ADOT, basically 85%. That's great. He can throw dink and dunks really well. But guys like McCarthy, 80% accuracy and a full 2.5 yards more down the field than Bo Nix. I like that number a lot. And then Jayden Daniels here with the big ADOT number. An 80% accuracy rate feels pretty good. Same thing with Caleb Williams. He's not too far off of JJ McCarthy's accuracy right there on ADOT. Those guys sticking out with their accuracy. Moving on to big time throw percentage. And this one is a good, it's a good stat to look at how many big time throws these players are making. Jayden Daniels led the way, of course, throwing to, Malik Nabers and Brian Thomas Jr. That's going to happen. But 8.4% big time throws for Jayden Daniels. Finally, we get a Jason Bean top 5 stat, 8.1% out of Kansas. Drake May, finally a top 5 stat here, 7.5% big time throw percentage. Sam Hartman, finally a top 5 stat. And then Penix Jr., not surprised to see Penix on this list with big time throws. Bottom 5 guys, though, Kenan Slovis, Bo Nix, Again, I just mentioned, that low A dot, not a lot of big time throws. He had a really low depth of target and did not, come through with big plays. But that's still weird because Troy Franklin's there, and they have a couple other players that we like. Joe Milton, for as big of an arm as he had, he didn't have a lot of big time throws. Spencer Rattler and Carter Bradley down here at the bottom five. Moving on to turnover worthy play percentage. Number one was Bo Nix. He takes care of the football, and just his low A dot dink and dunk nature, he was able to take care of the football. Had a lot of touchdowns and not many interceptions this year. 1% of his plays were turnover worthy. Jaden Daniels, number two, with a 1.6. Drake May, number three, coming in with a 1.9 turnover worthy percentage. Penix Jr. at 4, Joe Milton at 5. I'd like to see this. This is a good list to be high up on. You want guys that are not going to make bad decisions and keep the ball in good spots. So Bo Nix, Daniels, Drake May, Penix Jr. And I'm not sure where Caleb Williams ranked in this one. He did have that bad Notre Dame game where he kind of threw a lot of interceptions. So maybe he was kind of in the middle of the road here. But Pratt, Tagovailoa, Sam Hartman, Devin Leary, Jason Beam at the bottom of this. The next stat's going to be pressures turned into sacks. And I think this is a really interesting one because it kind of shows your escapability in the pocket. And surprisingly, the guy at the bottom of the list, Caleb Williams, ranked dead last in pressures turned into sacks. 23% of the times he was pressured, he got sacked. So I want to see him improve on that number. It wasn't as bad in 2022 as it was last year, but to be dead last out of 20 quarterbacks, and there are some really bad quarterbacks in this data study, for him to be last is a little concerning. Hopefully he can get over that and improve in the NFL at the next level. But Austin Reed, the number one QB here, 5.8% of his pressures turned into sacks. Bo Nix got away from sacks. Michael Penix, Kanan Slovis, and Sam Hartman. I think Jaden Daniels ranked kind of towards the bottom half of this list here. But this is an interesting one. This just shows your elusiveness in the pocket. When the pressure's coming in, can you get away from these sacks? Last year, Caleb Williams struggled with that. It looked like he was trying to, just from watching some of the tapes, he was trying to do a lot last year. Everyone knew he was going to be the number one pick. The season kind of soured quickly halfway through the year, and it looked like he was just trying to do a little bit too much with the ball. But there you go. And then the final scores ranking is kind of a fun little system I made. So all the stats that we just looked at, I come back and I rank these guys 1 through 20. And then I added up all the scores of these guys. So at the top of the list, Jaden Daniels scored the best. He only had 27 points. Obviously, you want lower points because when you get a number one ranking versus a 20, you want the lower score. So he was third best in accuracy, number one in QBR, number one offensive grade, 2 passing grade, first in rushing grade, first in big time throws, second in turnover worthy plays, and his bugaboo, he ranked 16th in pressures turned into sacks. So he's got to get better at getting rid of the ball when the pressure's coming in. But otherwise, he was top 2 or 3 in every category. Fantastic year out of Jaden Daniels. Not a surprise he was the Heisman winner. Bo Nix at number 2. Again, his bugaboos were 14th in run grade, 18th in big time throw percentage. Everything else was top 3. So he's a functional quarterback. He can lead an offense. He just needs to improve on throwing downfield. JJ McCarthy, top 10 in every stat. He was the only player to do that, I believe, in this data study. So he comes in at number 3. Big time throw percentage for him was just average, and pressures to turned into sacks was just average. But everything else was near top 5. Very good player, very underrated player. Michael Penix Jr., solid player. He had a bad run grade. Kind of around top 5 in all the metrics here. Drake May coming in at number 5. He didn't have the best QBR last year. They lost a lot of players. It wasn't the best season. He was 13th in QBR, 14th in pressures turned into sacks, but everything else was top 10. So he's a good quarterback, just didn't have the best year last year. And the same can be said for Caleb Williams. Pretty much all of his metrics were top 5-ish, top 10-ish. Turnover worthy plays and pressures turned into sacks, though, kind of hurt his numbers in this one. But overall, his tape is still the best. And then some guys down here, the finish at the top 10 for the scores. John Reese Plumlee scored out well. Jordan Travis played well. Sam Hartman and Jason Bean. So there you go. There is your quarterback advanced stats. I got one more to go, man. I got the tight ends to do. I'm going to try and get those stats up on the Patreon. They're already up on the fantasyfellowship.com. I just got to get the PDF put together and things like that. So enjoy the rest of it's combine week. So enjoy the rest of the combine week. Check out the numbers, check out the Patreon. We'll see you guys in a future video. And hey, if you guys have any, recommendations or things you want to see in future videos, let me know in the comments. But either way, thanks for hanging out. We'll see you guys next time. Peace.